The Torah is holy and divine, but also relevant and timely. And there's a great example in this week's Parshat Vayikra. This learning is in the merit of my grandmother, Esther Bat Shaul, may her neshama have an aliyah. We are starting the third book of the Torah with this Parsha Vayikra. Vayikra is the name of the third book of the Torah, which in English is Leviticus. So Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, what we're starting now, Numbers, Deuteronomy. And in this book of the Torah, it's a lot of mitzvot, a lot of learning about what the priests would do in the temple, in the desert, and the temple, and once the Jewish people got to Eretz Yisrael, once they got to the land of Israel. And I've always had a hard time sort of connecting to this whole book of the Torah because we no longer have the temple, we no longer do sacrifices, but I have found a new way to connect to it, and that's thanks to some learning that I heard from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory. So what he talks about is something that's kind of pointed out often. This first word, Vayikra, if you notice, the final letter, the aleph, is small. There's a few different explanations. So if you go and look at any Torah in the world, the little aleph at the beginning of Vayikra, at the end of the word Vayikra, but at the beginning of the book of the Torah, will be small. There's a few different explanations. Some say Moshe wrote it like this because he was embarrassed that God was calling to him in such a intimate and friendly manner. But the explanation that Rabbi Sachs gives was actually very moving to me. So Rabbi Sachs says that the small aleph represents the way that God is hidden in our day-to-day lives, okay? The Jewish people have just been freed from Egypt. They experienced the 10 plagues. They heard the thunderous and voice of God on Har Sinai, on Mount Sinai. They received this covenant from God to be God's people. And now they're about to, the plan was for them to enter the land of Israel and live a very normal life where God's hand is maybe hidden. And that's what this represents. Rabbi Sachs makes a connection between this word Vayikra and words that share the same root, which is Kuf Resh Aleph. Other words that share this root are Mikra, meaning reading, intentional designated reading, and Mikre, happenstance, chance. And this is connected to something that happens in the very end of this book of the Torah, in the Parsha Bechukotai. In Bechukotai, it gives the tochacha, the rebuke, that these are all the good things that you will receive if you obey my mitzvot, and if you don't obey my mitzvot, these are all the terrible things that will befall you. And something that God says, he uses the word keri, be-keri, by happenstance. This shares the same root as Vayikra, Mikra, Kuf Resh Aleph shares the same root. And basically what God says here, if you despite all of these bad things that will happen to you if you don't obey my mitzvot, if you disobey me and are hostile to me or view me as happenstance, then I will act against you in happenstance. What does this mean? This means that if you see the world, that everything just happens by chance, nothing is divine, nothing is ordained, then that's how the world will be. If we believe that we are small, then that's how we are. If we believe that we don't deserve good things, then we won't get good things. What God is saying here is if you think the world is so random and nothing's happening intentionally, then the world will happen to you randomly, not intentionally. But the gift of having a God that we believe in, of having a God that is loyal, of having a God that is consistent, of having a God who orchestrates our lives in ways that we cannot even begin to understand, is recognizing that we are small, that the hand of God sometimes is hidden, but we must be looking for it. Nothing is random, even if we think it is. This goes back to what I was saying, that this book of the Torah is a lot about korbanot, a lot about sacrifices, things that maybe I can't understand. Maybe nowadays we can't understand them. That doesn't mean that they don't have meaning or value. It's not for my puny brain to understand. The hand of God is hidden. Not everything is known. Nothing is random. You may not know the reasons for something, but there are always reasons. And that is what I'm going to focus on when I learn this book of Vayikra as we continue to read. So, Shabbat Shalom.